Om Shri Sai Ram. Bhagavata Vahini by Bhagwan Shri Satya Sai Baba. Chapter 29. The dialogue begins. Describing the stages of creation, Sage Shuka said, Shatarupa and Manu together approached the Lord of creation and inquired what they had to fulfill. Brahma replied with a smile, Be mates of each other, beget and people the earth. Equipped with authority derived from this command, they fill the earth with people, said the sage Shuka to the king. At this the king interceded, Master, I have learned from my own experience that the origin of all grief in this world is infatuation or moha. I have no desire to hear about these matters. Please relate to me how to overcome infatuation, delusion, and attachment. In these last days, what exactly has man to do? Which name has he to keep constantly in mind so that he can avoid forever this round of birth and death? Tell me these things, he asked. Shuka was very much delighted at this query. He replied, O king, you are a spiritual soul. You serve sages with devotion. This large gathering of monks, ascetics, and sages is proof of your meritorious acts. For these do not usually congregate in any place. The king interrupted him with his protests. No, my lord, I am a great sinner. I have no trace of spiritual progress in me. If I had the least merit, if I had served sages devotedly, I would not have become the target for the curse of the Brahmin. The fortune that I now enjoy, namely the company of these great sages and the chance of adoring your feet, is the consequence of the meritorious acts of my forefathers. I know fully well that my activities have not contributed anything to it. The grace that Shyamasundar Krishna showered on my grandparents is the cause. Had it been otherwise, can persons like me, who are sunk in the well of samsara, immersed in the vain pursuit of sensory pleasure, who do not contemplate for a moment the true, the eternal, and the pure, can we ever hope to see before us in concrete form your presence? Ever roaming in the silences of the forest, unknown to man, really, this is an unattainable piece of good fortune. All this due to the blessings of my grandparents and the grace of Shyam Sundar, and not to anything else. You are full of affection for me, and so you attribute this to my own merit. I am only too aware of my failings. Kindly continue to shower on me the same affection and help me to decide what has to be given up by a person whose death is imminent, what has to be adopted and practiced by him. Advise me this and make my days worthwhile. You alone can solve this for me. Relate to me the Bhagavata as you said you would. You told me that it is the basis for progress and for liberation. It will destroy sins. It will result in prosperity. Let me quaff the sacred nectar of the name of Krishna and refresh myself in this feverish heat, he pleaded. Shuka smiled at the king and said, The Bhagavata is as worthy of reverence as the Vedas, as worthy of study and observance. At the end of the Dwapara age, on the Gandha Madana mountain in the hermitage of my father Vyasa, I had listened to that sacred text. I shall repeat the same to you. Listen. At this, the king inquired, with his palms held together in prayer, O incomparable sage, I have heard that you were an ascetic deep in detachment from the very moment of birth, even without the traditional ceremonial rites which purify and clarify the intellect. as Jathakarma, Namakarana, and Upayana, initiation, you had won the fullest awareness of the reality, and hence I've heard you were moving about in the consciousness of that truth, away from men in the forests. Hence, I'm surprised that your heart was drawn towards this text, which you say is saturated with devotion. What caused your interest in this path? I pray that you describe the circumstances to me. Shuka started explaining with a calm, unruffled countenance. Yes, I am beyond prescriptions and prohibitions. I am in unbroken mergence in the attributeless Nirguna Brahma. This is the truth about me. Nevertheless, I must declare that there is an inexpressible sweetness in God that attracts you and captivates you by His sportive activities and attributes. I must confess also that I have listened to the description of the beauty and the sweetness of God. My mind delighted in hearing and reading the glories of God, manifesting His divine attributes. Through each of these, I could not remain at peace. I exulted like a madman, thrilled by the bliss I derived from listening and reading. His sweet pranks and sports intoxicated me with infinite joy. This day I came hither, since I became aware that a chance had arisen to relate them to a group of eager listeners, persons who, in all respects, deserve to hear them and understand their significance. Therefore, I shall relate that sacred Bhagavata to you, and through you to the personages gathered here. You have the avidity and the attainment necessary to listen to it. You have resolved to achieve the highest goal of man. Those who listen to this narrative with earnest devotion and reflect upon its value and significance and act according to the light it sheds on their minds, such will merge in the bliss of which Vasudeva, the Lord, is the embodiment. Their hearts will be filled with the sweet nectar of the personification of captivating charm, and they will experience the Advaita Ananda, the bliss of being one and only. The highest sadhana is the recitation of the name of God, with full vigilance of thought, feeling, and utterance, and the loud singing of His glory. No better sadhana exists. O King, do not lose yourselves in anxiety that time is short. Not much time is needed to win the grace of God. The rays of grace from that embodiment of compassion can fall on you as quick as the wink of the eye. I shall enable you to listen during these 7 days to the stories of many who experience spiritual bliss. How Vasudeva blessed them with spiritual progress, how persons cross the ocean of birth and death through the hearing of such stories and the singing of the glory of God that is manifest in them. We shall not waste a single moment. You are conscious that you have only 7 more days of life. Therefore, give up all sense of mine and thine, of the body in which you live and the home in which the body lives. Be aware only of the story of Madhava, the Lord of the universe. Drink the nectarine narratives of the incarnations of the Lord. It is quite a common occurrence that stories are told and heard by gatherings of thousands. But jnana or wisdom can be achieved only by placing complete faith in what is heard. That faith must result in a cleansed mind, a pure heart. One further point, O King. There are countless exponents who go about discoursing on morals and spiritual matters on the basis of mere study. They do not have an iota of experience of what they preach. They have no faith in the authenticity of the various manifestations of divine glory which they dilate upon. Such exhortations is as ineffective as offerings of ghee made not in flames but on a cold heap of ashes. It will not cure the mind of faults and failures. In your case, there is no fear of such ineffectiveness. Your heart is immersed in the uninterrupted flood of love for Shyamasundar. Whoever listens to this narrative and imbibes the nectar of this story with a heart bubbling over with divine yearning, unshakable faith in God, and constant joy can attain the realization of the self. This is beyond the realm of doubt. O King, this occasion, this text, and this listener are all quite appropriate and excellent. Saying, "Oh, how fortunate you are," the sage Shuka placed his hand on the head of the king in benediction. He caressed the thick curls of his hair. The king pleaded most humbly, "Master, you know too well that I have very little time before me. Therefore," he continued with folded palms, "give me highest guidance, and I shall get myself established in it all these 7 days. Give me the holy formula so that I can repeat it in the short time I have and keep it fresh in memory and save myself." The sage laughed. "Parikshit, those who are intent on sensory pleasure spend their days in worry, in anxiety, in pain, grief, and tears throughout a long period of life. They breed like birds and beasts. They eat good food and cast it away as urine and feces. This is the purposeless life that most people lead. Can you call this the process of living? Enormous numbers of living beings exist on the earth. Living is not enough. It has no value by itself, for itself. It is the motives, the feelings, the thoughts, the attitudes that prompt the day-to-day life that matters. If a person has divine qualities manifesting themselves as thoughts, feelings, etc., then he is alive. Instead, if a person defiles the holy encasement of his body by utilizing it for unholy purposes that cater to momentary happiness, thereby ignoring the all-knowing, all-powerful providence, it is to be condemned as a calculated denial of one's humanity. Take the case of a person who has fixed his mind on the lotus feet of the Lord, Hari. It does not matter if he is short-lived. During that short period, he can make his life fruitful and auspicious. O King, to remove your doubt, I shall tell you the beautiful story of a Raja Rishi. Listen. In the Solar dynasty, there was once a ruler who was mighty in prose, heroic on the field, prolific in charity, upright in character, and just in his dealings. He was named Khatwanga. He had no equal, no one could challenge him. Meanwhile, the wicked Daityas and the Danavas mustered their forces and went to war against the Devas or gods. The gods were afraid of being overwhelmed. They realized their weakness and came down to earth and sought help from King Khatwanga. The king was also longing for the adventure of battle. So he collected his bow and arrows and riding his chariot, he proceeded to the scene of war. There, he shook the hearts of the Daityas and Danavas by the sheer terror of his valor. The enemy fled in panic, unable to withstand the terrific onslaught, since it is immoral to subject a fleeing foe to hot pursuit. Khatvanga desisted from further clashes. The gods or the Devas were happy that they could achieve victory through the timely help of Khatvanga. They praised his might and his sense of righteousness. O king, there is no one who can compare with you in contemporary history. You granted us triumph in this deadly struggle against the forces of evil. We desire that you should accept from us in the return any help that you need that we can render. The king told them, Gods, yajanas and yagas are performed by men to please you, isn't it? This battle in which I had the privilege to participate is therefore a yajna. So far as I am concerned, what else do I need from you than this grace that you have showered on me? This is adequate boon. Declaring thus, he fell at the feet of the gods. Not satisfied with this reply, the gods compelled him to ask for something, some boon from them. Though he had no mind to ask anything, he was forced to frame some wish, since he felt he would not be left alone. At last he said, Ye gods, reveal to me how many more years I shall live. Only then can I decide which boon I can ask from you. Purandara or Indra, the monarch of the gods, is all-knowing, and so, without a moment's delay, he replied, O king, your span of life is nearly over. You can live only for one more Mahurata, a period of a few minutes. On hearing this, Khatvanga said, I have nothing to ask. I do not need anything. I feel that all the pleasures of this world and the next are trifles to be discarded. I shall not enter again the slush of sensory pleasure. Give me the boon of attaining the sublime presence of the Lord, from which there is no return, for which all life is dedicated. Then he sat with closed eyes, repeating the name of God, and at the end of the Mahurata, he achieved the lotus feet of God Hari. Note how in a few moments he cast off from the mind all attachment to objective pleasure. Khatvanga was thus able to reach the feet of the Lord, where fear dare not approach. You have 7 days, while he had a few minutes only. Therefore, you have no reason to be anxious. During these days, purify your inner consciousness by attentively listening to the best and holiest narrative of the manifestation of God. At this, Parikshit shed tears of joy, remembering the supreme benediction won by the great devotee Khatvanga. He exclaimed, Master, instruct me what I must do now. I do not get words to express my yearning. My heart is overflowing with bliss. He sat in petrified silence. Shuka advised, O king, equip yourself with the sword of detachment. Cut into pieces the deluded affection for the body. Give up the minus that makes you cling to your kith and kin. Be seated firmly on the bank of this sacred river. Then, when Shuka was about to begin his narrative, Parikshit appeared anxious to ask some question. Seeing this, Shuka said, You seem to be perplexed with something. Ask me what you wish to know and have that doubt removed from your mind. Immediately, the king said, Master, you are indeed an ocean of compassion. As a tasty meal to a starving person, your words bring cool comfort to me, to the burning heart. Revered preceptor, you had spoken to me a short while ago about the beginnings of creation. I did not understand it clearly. Why did the attributeless Parabrahma assume form and attributes? Tell me about that. The king sat with expectant face, all attention and praying sincerely, eager to hear and learn. Jai Sai Ram.
साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वप्रचोदयात्। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वप्रचोदयात्। ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वप्रचोदयात्। ॐ